Miss Fisher's Murder Mysteries. Hello everyone, welcome back to Meddling in Antiquity. My name is Teray, and today we're going to be discussing probably my favorite television show on the face of the planet, Miss Fisher's Murder Mysteries, inspired by the series of novels by Carrie Greenwood. So now that the street sweeper is gone, let's get into kind of my introduction to Miss Fisher and the show and the books. So it was recommended to me by my great aunt, because seeing as I love period pieces, I think when we met I was going through a very, very distinct steampunk phase. Anyway, it was recommended to me by my great aunt, as I said, who is also actually the person who introduced me to Discworld, which is another video for another series for another time. And from the first episode, the first moment Franny walked onto that screen, I was in love. I loved the show, I loved the costumes, and when I say that she never wears the same outfit more than once, I mean it. The costume designer was so intent on making sure that Franny was really the epitome of 1920s glamour. You never see her in the same exact outfit more than one time. And she's got between 3 to 5, possibly 6 outfit changes per episode. So a lot of work really went into making this show as accurate as possible to the time period they were trying to portray. It is mostly written by women, it is mostly staffed by women, it was mostly created by women, the directors are oftentimes women. So the show very much focuses on the female gaze, which is something that not a lot of people have really seen, and I think the last time I saw it done and done well was in Guillermo del Toro's Crimson Peak and a lot of the interactions between Edith and Thomas. That was it. And then I found Miss Fisher's Murder Mysteries, and the whole show is the female gaze, so a lot of the times it's the men that Franny takes into her bed are there specifically for her enjoyment. There's not a lot of Franny being in a state of undress. And I mean, she's in a state of undress, but a lot of the time she's either fully or majority covered. So she'll be in her underwear, she'll be in her robe, she'll be in something just so beautiful and so glamorous while the men are wandering about shirtless in like their little underpants. That's it. And I really appreciated that. And it's a fun show if you're a period piece fan, if you're a fan of the 20s, if you like the music, all the music is period accurate, and it's a very well done show. I also do recommend the books. I have only read one, the first one, Cocaine Blues, and I love it. I love it just as much as I love the show. And there is a lot of differences. Like a lot of the things that are in the show were written specifically for the show and don't actually happen in the books. And the books, not every mystery is a murder. In the show, there is a murder that underlies every single thing that Franny is doing. So do keep that in mind, but I do also recommend the books. So I want to kind of get into the characters and introducing you to the people that we're going to be talking about and everyone who's in the show first. So we're going to start with our main character, our leading lady, Franny Fisher, named after the courtesan Franny. Which was a mistake actually on her father's part. But she is this beautiful, bold, incredible woman who is completely unafraid to do whatever the hell she wants. And even if it's going to get her into a lot of trouble, which it often does. It really does. And going on from there, we have Franny's Aunt Prudence, who is actually, if you recognize her, was Miriam Marigold, who most of you will know as Professor Sprout from the Harry Potter franchise. And her character is very hilarious and also has this really beautiful character development arc from being this very uptight, strict woman to kind of really understanding why Franny does what she does and understanding her motives for doing the things that she feels like she needs to do. Now we have Franny's best friend, Mac, who is a doctor, not a nurse, nay, a doctor, and also a lesbian. She wears exclusively suits and ascots and is also a redhead and is a lesbian. Which had me shook, because I've never seen a redhead lesbian doctor in the 1920s, and when I tell you, it's one of the best parts of the show, because Mac keeps cracking jokes. It's the best part of the show. And we have our comic relief duo, Cess and Bert, who are hilarious. They are ex-wharfies, they are cab drivers, and most importantly to them, they are communists. Hardcore red raggers. And they get a lot of crap for it through the show, but damn it if it's not really funny. Really funny. And we have Dorothy, affectionately called Dot by just about everyone. Dot or Dottie. Bert calls her Dottie, but everyone else calls her Dot. But she goes from this very meek, timid young Catholic girl to this very strong, independent woman who, despite being afraid a lot of the time and of a lot of things, eventually learns to take exactly what she wants and is unafraid to fight for what she feels she deserves. Then you have Hugh, who, oh, sweet Hugh, sweet Hugh. He works with Jack in the police department, and he very much he has a tendency to underestimate the women around him, whether it's Dot or Phryne or Mac, but eventually he kind of grows out of that and grows into someone who is a man who is fully capable of respecting exactly what the women around him are capable of. And specifically with Dot, his relationship with her really does change him for the better. Then leading into from Hugh to Jack, who is a detective inspector, and his relationship with Phryne starts as him drastically underestimating exactly how much trouble she can get herself into. And eventually he grows to respect her. They have such a fun back and forth between the two of them that develops from this kind of begrudging of Jack not really wanting Phryne there to him just expecting her to show up and expecting her to come along with him if he needs some backup. And it's a really beautiful thing to watch. I think I've covered everyone who's necessary. So let's kind of get into talking about the episode breakdown. So before we get into the main bulk of me discussing the show, I do want to put out a bit of a warning, because there is a lot of very heavy subject matter that is going to be discussed. A lot of it is dealing with issues revolving around women that I will get demonetized for saying, so I will put a little card at the end of this bit listing the issues that we're going to be discussing or that will be mentioned in some of the episodes if you do choose to watch the show later. So, as I've stated before, the show's called Miss Fisher's Murder Mysteries. So each episode there's a murder, but there are some episodes that, on top of that murder, deal with these underlying other issues. And a lot of the times they're socio-political issues. So you've got feminism, race, gender, queerness. It's very interesting to see how those issues are tackled. And I kind of want to go down and I have a list of episodes that deal with these specific things, and it's a very specific list. So I'm going to give you the names of the episodes, and I don't want to give too much away. So I'm going to kind of break it down a little bit by season without trying to give as little away as I possibly can. So first up, we have season 1, episode 1, which is called Cocaine Blues, which deals with the cocaine trade and the drug trade while also dealing with black market abortion issues. And it's a very interesting episode, and how they tackle that and what they do to kind of deal with those issues is really interesting. And that actually is where we meet a good chunk of the characters that I mentioned. Then we have season 1, episode 3, The Green Mill Murder, which deals with racism, fetishization of women of color, spousal abuse in marriages, and also blackmail and anti-sodomy laws. So that one's got a lot for it being a very fun episode. Then you have season 1, episode 7, which is called Murder in Montparnasse, which is Phryne dealing with intimate partner violence and the resulting trauma of it. A friend of Phryne's also dealing with the same thing. So it's very much an episode about overcoming trauma in regards to spousal abuse. Then season 1, episode 9, Queen of the Flowers, is dealing with coercion and a word that I can't say on YouTube without getting demonetized, but it involves an older man in a position of power taking advantage of a child. And that is it's a very difficult episode to watch. And this a part of why I'm going episode by episode is because I want to give people a bit of a warning, because sometimes the subject matter in these episodes, whether or not the episode feels like it's going to be that, is oftentimes very heavy. So moving on to season 1, episode 10, we've got Death by Misadventure, which deals with lesbianism and to what it means to be a lesbian and the income inequality that happens in factory work. And that is a very interesting episode. That actually revolves very heavily around Mac, our beautiful, perfect lesbian doctor who's also a redhead who wears suits and ascots. She's wonderful. And then you have season 1, episode 11, called Blood and Circuses, which deals with discrimination against carnival people and carnies, and also against intersex people, because there is a character who is intersexed in that episode, and how that is dealt with and how that is kind of portrayed is done very well, I think. Then I'll leave it up to anyone who's had experience with intersex people or who knows someone who's intersex or is intersex themselves to decide whether or not that portrayal is accurate to them. But in my opinion, as someone who has not personally dealt with that experience, I feel as though it's done very tastefully and respectfully to the trans and intersex community. All right, moving on to season 2, we have season 2, episode 1, Murder Most Scandalous, which deals with sex work, prostitution, and blackmail. Yeah, what a hell of a way to start the episode. Start a new season, right? Season 2, episode 3, Dead Man's Chest, deals with the temperance movement, alcoholism, and coping mechanisms, unhealthy coping mechanisms. And that one is a very interesting episode that revolves around Phryne's aunt, who is played by Miriam Marigolles, who most of you will know as Professor Sprout from the Harry Potter franchise. Then you've got season 2, episode 4, Dead Weight, which deals with Aboriginal rights, mixed race families, and adoption, and how the adoption system is designed to essentially screw over mixed race families by taking away the whitest child and putting it into a foster home, whether or not the mother is in a position to care for them. And it's a very good episode. Season 2, episode 7, we have Blood on the Wheel, and that deals with women and driving and sexism. It's a general sexism, really, by a person who is in politics and wants to try to ban women from driving. That one's a fun one. Very dislikable man in that one. You can have fun hating him. You're supposed to. It's fine. All right, moving on to season 2, episode 8, you have Blood of Juana the Mad. This is one of my favorite episodes in the entire season. I love this episode because it deals with women and education, and there's also like issues of women of color in institutes of higher learning that comes into play as well, and I really like I love how they handle it. I really do. And it's done so well, and it's the main character that this episode revolves around, I believe, is portrayed to be some level of autistic, whether it is Asperger's, I'm not sure, but she's very particular, and the portrayal is very well done, I think, and I find it's a very good episode. Moving on to season 2, episode 10, Death on the Vine, and that deals with anti-German sentiment post-World War II. And that is a very interesting episode, an episode that deeply unsettles me so much that in the many, many times I've watched the show, I have only ever watched that episode twice. But it is a very good episode. Then we have, season 2, episode 12, which is the conclusion of the main body of the season. And that is about the sex trade and essentially child slavery. It's and also corruption in the police force and within the church. Relevancy. All right, moving on to season 3. We start off with season 3, episode 2, Murder in the Maiden, which is about women in the military in the 20s, which was rare, though the UK was far ahead of the US in regards to allowing women to the military in the first place. This takes place in the late 20s. I believe the first season starts mid to late 1926. So it was still a very new idea at the time. In season 3, episode 5, you have Death and Hysteria, which is about women and mental health issues that affect women. So that one's a very interesting episode, also a very relevant episode. And it's about a doctor who essentially created a clinic to protect women from unnecessary hysterectomies. So props to him. He's a very interesting character, and it's very interesting to watch the dynamic unfold in that season. And you've got season 3, episode 7, Game, Set, and Murder, which is about women in sports, athletic sexism, and unwanted pregnancy. So that's kind of a breakdown of what I think are the main issues of those specific episodes, the episodes that I think had the most prevalent issues. Final thoughts about Miss Fisher's Murder Mysteries. I love the show. It's my go-to chronic binge watch show, or at least it was when it was still on Netflix and then was taken off of Netflix. That is where I watched it. That's where I watched every single episode, at least. I don't know how many times. I don't want to think about how many times. I watched the show on repeat for 3 years consistently. So I'm not sure, but I do know that it is available on Amazon Prime via Acorn TV, or you can go to Acorn TV separately and subscribe to them. I do know it is available as a separate subscription via Amazon Prime Video. The books are available through Poison Pen Press. I purchased my copy of the first one, Cocaine Blues, via Thrift Books. I do know the entire series is available on there. You can probably find them on Amazon, any sort of book retailer. I know for a fact that Barnes & Noble does not have them. They have not gotten them in yet. I would like them to, but they have not. However, it's a fun show, it's a fun story, and it's a very engaging and really gorgeous way to kind of tell and handle a lot of the subject matter they're doing. It's done very tastefully. So if period pieces, the 1920s, jazz, feminism are your thing, watch Miss Fisher's Murder Mysteries, because I can pretty much guarantee that you're gonna enjoy it. So that has been all for Socio-Political Smackdown, and I will see you on Wednesday for our first episode of One-Off Wonders.